We'll also be discussing Swift and Ripple in this episode. Due to the appearance of a fragment of information from a document demonstrating Swift's affiliation with Ripple folks, we've already discussed this. Swift is a group of banks. As far as we know, many of these Swift network banking members are already Ripple partners and have access to demand liquidity. They can only fight this for so long before they are compelled to change, and I believe that's what's happening. This is a wonderful time for everything to happen. We are currently in the midst of a significant bull run in the cryptocurrency market, poised to soar to unprecedented heights. Prepare yourself for the journey ahead. Bitcoin $66,000 over the last 24 hours, Ethereum has increased by 1.06%, or almost 0.5%, to $3,312, which is exactly where he wanted it to be. That's the dollar peg. During the last 24 hours, USDC has dropped 67%. It is currently trading at 99 cents with a mean lean of 58 cents on the one and only XRP. The current market capitalization of all cryptocurrencies is $2 XRP. 520 billion. As we previously mentioned, the markets are currently in an extremely precarious current, and a collapse into the lower to mid-$60,000 level is possible. Was a void. There was a significant gap in the CME at that point. First dump, but there is still a liquidity grab of between $60 and $64,000 seen here. This does not mean the problems are over. We have one more massive shot left in the final. Before making the subsequent move up, push down to close those liquidity gaps. Doesn't need to occur, does it? Similar to a CME gap, CM gaps can occur, but I believe they fill 90% of the time. Filled, as we witnessed. However, before this gets blown off and enters super cycle mode, which is about to happen, we might still drop down one more time for that liquidity grab. Do we fill trillions, or is that the question? Seize the liquid at the bottom or take a position. How can we tell when we have broken out simply beyond 72 to 74,000 above that range, which I like to call 74K if we keep pushing up to this point? Bitcoin is experiencing a supercycle, unlike anything you have ever seen. It currently trades around 125, 150, and possibly even 175,000. A bull run is expected. Until 2025. It's exciting to imagine that a significant number of people will retire from cryptocurrency in 2019 and that a significant number of millionaires will emerge. Currently looking for action. Quite exciting times. These optimistic times are drawing near. I share what I have, and many of you are undoubtedly thinking, well, Rip, you'll see in the date that I'll be there, but it's probably too late to get into what you hold it to be. My XRP and H-bar bag aren't on this list because I bought everything else over the previous week or two. All of these coins were bought out at the end of February, which was only a small portion of them. There are, I think, 15 cryptocurrencies with mid-high and low caps. This bag is straightforward. It displays the percentage I invested in each cryptocurrency and the date of acquisition. I fully anticipate that it will bring me in close to, say, 30 seconds after I genuinely think that we look amazing out of 5. I do think that many of these are going to rise much higher than 5x, but as you know, I'm a really conservative guy, so our projections are conservative. Brad Garlinghouse, does anyone recall this? It's coming from Paris and is quite traditional. FinTech discussion board, this one Brad was performing. With Swift's former supercycle, Gilbert Gottfried, hear what Brad has to say. The GPI is a huge advancement. You know, for more than 40 years, we had a framework for how cross-border correspondent banking operated. It had many restrictions, but it did function. We are seeing progress, but overall, I believe this is a step in the right direction. Moving forward, if you could just move from, say, a horse and buggy to, say, hey, can we make the horse and buggy travel faster? Sure, but if we could just move to a last alright, let's get started. GPI, you're correct when you're correct. Why? Build a horse and carriage. Swift has many members, so it will go more quickly if you can go straight to the Ferrari. We're not like Amazon versus Walmart, quotations. So did AOL love that from you, he asks. Brad, ever since Bob Way informed us that he had that run in memory, we knew. Among the first 7 pleas was Bob Way. When Bob Way ran into the executives and high-ups of Swift at Ripple, he was informing them of what Ripple was doing. How is the problem of cross-border money movement being resolved? At their own conference, the CBO's conference, Swift went back to the drawing board and began to develop, innovate, and consider new approaches to their work, which is how GPI came to be. Swift would not change if Ripple had never entered this payment arrangement. They would continue to operate in the same manner as they have for the previous 40 years. Never have acquired GPI. You can track money with Swift GPI, really, very, really. Takes note that no VOUs are being used. Ripple is solving an issue worth more than $10 trillion. These banks and financial institutions employ on-demand liquidity as a digital asset, and these banks do not need to retain XRP if they do not want to. Counterparty risk using the tools they have built before. All they have to do is connect to the network and use XRP as the bridge cryptocurrency. We are publishing this along with court records that reference selling XRP generates almost all of Ripple's revenue. I'm curious about potential changes to this. The only question that remains in the Ripple v. SEC lawsuit is how Ripple will be permitted to sell XRP to institutional clients going forward. HSBC announced that they are collaborating with Ripple and Matto in 2024 to enhance the bank systems to issue token ownership of physical gold using DLT. And that's it. The only thing remaining is that, and it will be resolved. It will seeing what HSBC does will be interesting to watch. Especially with tokenizing, to accomplish here. Robbie, my man, put this out. When we complete the project, you will receive XRP for holding our NFTs, involved in other initiatives, and after buying you hundreds of these adorable tiny jade pigs, nothing occurs. The project simply stops developing. They don't innovate, they just do. Nothing. It was rendered completely ineffective. Your valuable XRP was completely lost. Fair, thank you for your NFT, and you're receiving a little something back as we expand and evolve the project. It's a win-win situation. These are great right now, new ones have just arrived. The Wild Wild West tier, these are very, very wonderful. Can obtain them. You've been waiting for potatoes, Swift, and now here we are with the meat. It's crucial to understand how Swift GPI uses HTTPS APIs to access RippleNet and XRP through Ripple partners without requiring a direct Swift-Ripple relationship. The standard Swift MT type of messaging is used to send Swift GPI real-time payment messages to the bank, and RippleNet services get the same empty type in return. Messages through the API bridge that SAP Teamos has set up, etc., all of which occur on their own. Swift, a Ripple, and Swift don't need to be in collaboration, but it still happens. By way of these additional suppliers, your SAPs, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, people, Swift is simply a message. Your temps are your Earth ports. Many different banks out there are part of a consortium of banks, but many of these banks are linked to other service providers that manage their transfers. Earthport is taking on the risk associated with everything else as they assist in moving the money to the areas where it is being tapped. Let's imagine that the banks are connecting with them. Swift doesn't need to route payments into RippleNet because it has access to on-demand liquidity. I'm not even sure how a quick relationship with Ripple would work, given that there are so many different banks involved. Now, for them to notify you of any kind, you must have all of the individual banks on board. However, if all you need to know is the names of 9 out of 10 banks, I'm sure there are more, and Swift, I'm just providing you with a for instance. If 9 banks out of 10 are used, can you conclude that Swift uses RippleNet or XRP in this scenario? That's just a handful of banks, right? What if there were thousands of institutions worldwide that used Ripple to get on-demand liquidity? Could we then claim that Swift is one of those banks? At that point, notice what I'm saying, people, SWIFT is just a fancy term for a group of banks. They will all be utilizing DT technology and the internet and won't even be aware that they are using it on demand. Liquidity is a prime example of how wonderful technology is when it's used, even when people aren't aware they're utilizing it. You have a great idea.